I decided to do mine over the Cuban embargo, and that's something that's kind of has never really affected my generation, or probably most of the students in this class. So I was unfamiliar with it. So it's something I was excited wanted to look at and chose to go for. The overview of what I'll be going over: the history of U.S.-Cuba relations, which was all new information to me; the embargo itself, changes in the past, abolishment of the embargo, arguments for and against the embargo, and of course the economic impacts of removing the embargo. U.S.-Cuba relations. Fidel Castro came into power by overthrowing the government that was there in 1859. He established communism, which was kind of a big deal in that time. He actually took over 1.8 billion U.S. assets, and that's assets at that time period. It could be as much as 20 billion worth of stuff today. President John F. Kennedy signed the embargo. He actually dealt with the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis. An interesting fact I learned was that JFK actually sent his press secretary over there before the embargo went into effect to get as many Cuban cigars as he could. The embargo itself prohibits travel to Cuba. It outlaws financial transactions. It prohibits the purchase or import of any merchandise of Cuban origin. So you can see here, that's why Cuba still has cars from before the embargoes, because they haven't been able to get any new U.S. vehicles. Of course, they could get other foreign vehicles, but not U.S. made. The U.S. has put conditions on removing the embargo, which Cuba has not met. Cuba would need to release all political prisoners. They need to legalize political activity, so have a democratic system, have a freedom of press, support human rights, and allow labor unions. The labor union is interesting to me because that is kind of a point of the time of when it was created. Over time, the embargo has been changed. Jimmy Carter started having conversations with Cuba in 1977. Fidel Castro was not happy about that, so he actually sent a bunch of political prisoners, mentally ill prisoners, people of that origin to the United States to ease the amount of people he had to feed. The USSR has been a good friend to Cuba all the way since the Cuban Missile Crisis. They've kept them afloat with billions of dollars in assistance. President Clinton, who was actually not a fan of the embargo, and if it wasn't for the GOP at the time, would have removed it completely, began to allow some travel in 1995. President Obama recently in the State of the Union said, when what you're doing doesn't work for 50 years, it's time to try something new. So President Obama, for the last 18 months, has actually been having discussions with Cuba, facilitated by Canada, and this was actually kind of came to a head when they met with the Pope in the Vatican. President Obama has used all executive action possible, so at this time nothing more could be done without the assistance from Congress to remove the embargo. It's interesting because some GOP senators actually support it because of the agriculture. Some Democratic senators are leery of it because of their constituency at home. Cuba has not met any of the requirements that the U.S. has originally placed on them to remove the embargo. Some people are concerned that this may make the U.S. look weak, and especially on the front of human rights. The embargo itself is obviously a Cold War era policy, and so it hasn't been updated that much since then. Congress sure hasn't done anything to change it since then. The UN has voted for the last 20-some years to get rid of to get rid of the embargo and tell the U.S. to do so. The only countries that have voted against that with the UN is the United States itself and Israel, which is a close friend. The economic impact could be huge. There's many companies looking to already move to Cuba if the embargo would be removed. The biggest would be a political interest for U.S. agriculture because of the support that they gave in 2001 after a hurricane had hit there. These are some interesting numbers. I would encourage you to pause this and actually look at these. But this was done by a study that was facilitated in 2002 that I cite in the sources for the U.S. Government. Obviously, you can see a significant impact would be had for the United States, and in retrospect, also for Cuba. Thank you guys for looking at this, and look forward to you guys working on the group project together.